So, what I wanted to briefly show you guys in this classroom is mostly what I've been talking about over and over in other classrooms with more fundamental principles. And that's basically what you also need to do for this cycles assignment. Okay, that's what you need to keep in mind. And the main ones are addition and subtraction, and then shape manipulation or cross section, contour manipulation. Those are the two concepts that I want you to apply in this week. To just, again, familiarize yourself more with construction, how to get better at it, especially from invention, right, from imagination, turning objects with more complicated forms to see if you really what you're looking at, if you understand it, even before you go into the anatomy. That's why I hammer so much on these first part assignments, is you can already do so much with such little understanding of the anatomy, right? It's all about construction. If you understand that, you can do so much. Especially also going into the part 3 assignment for this cycle. You can just, with basic shapes, you can already do almost 70% of your entire illustration with dynamic shapes, right? So that's what I want you to train this cycle, right? And we're doing dinosaurs, so it's a little bit more fun. All right. So without further ado, let's do the first assignment. So the first mannequin that I want you to do is a mannequin based on your reference in the perspective that you see your reference with simple form, right? So I see a lot of you like only using blocky forms. That wasn't necessarily the intent. You can also use simple cylinders, but keep it to those rudimentary simple shapes with a little bit of subtraction or addition if you can muster it, right? So for the Velociraptor that you see in my reference, for instance, first thing that I look at is the orientation of the head, because this just gives me a good indication of what kind of perspective we're in and how that will influence the rest of my body. And I usually have like 2 indicators, be it for characters or creatures, whatever, in terms of perspective and orientation. I look at the head and I look at the feet, right? And depending on the difference between them in terms of vanishing points, like how fast they converge, I can kind of estimate what kind of lens that we're using and what kind of orientation we're in. So if you look at the reference that I have here on the top left of the screen, this Velociraptor, it's like a normal lens to a longer lens. The reason I say that is because there's very little convergence going on from the bottom of the feet or the claws to the top of the head, right? It's not like it's super extreme converging this way and then the feet are super extremely converging the other way. They're relatively at the same height on a horizontal level. So that gives me an indication that this lens is kind of, standard lens. So when I go about drawing this, I'm just going to go straight into it. And again, this first mannequin, just keep it simple, right? So you can do a box if you want to. So you could do like let me just first draw the very simple version. Right, so what you could do is I'm just going to dot this, draw the very simple box for this head. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add, so I'm going to use addition. I'm going to add a little bit of a shape to represent that mouth area a little bit better. Right. So I could do it like this. Very rudimentary. Or I could do a little extra and I could add like the subtraction, which means that I subtract a little bit of where the mouth should be. And again, I'm not thinking about the width of this box yet. I'm just primarily thinking about addition and subtraction at this point. And again, the reason that we're doing these is all for your orientation, just to get that better, right? That's all you should be worrying about at this point, right? Just the orientation of your boxes and how you can add and subtract shapes from simple primitives, right? Now, if the subtraction part for you feels a little daunting, just keep it simple, right? Just use like a chamfered box. Something like this. And don't do any subtraction. Just do a little bit of addition, right? Try to maybe indicate more of the width of the box. Don't concern yourself with the mouth being open, right? If that is too hard. Then just don't do it. Be honest with yourself in where you're at. All right. And then we're going to attach the neck. And at all times, like I see a lot of you not drawing through any of your forms, right? Definitely don't be afraid to draw through your forms, or at least indicate like parts of it. You don't have to connect everything at this point. It's not necessary to have the most accurate representation of what you see in terms of believability. What the goal of this first part is to have the construction right and the orientation of your simple forms. That's your first concern, right? So think about that when you're doing this exercise. So again, when we're attaching the neck, all I'm thinking about is simple cylinder orientated like this. Again, not concerning myself with any major manipulations right now. Just think about accurately representing what you see in the perspective that you see it, with as simple shapes as you can. So for instance, for the torso itself or the entire body, a lot of you are already trying to manipulate it in a lot of ways, but then I see that your perspective is way off in your organic forms. So again, that means that you're not yet comfortable with the orientation of your simple shapes. So go back to your design and or your first mannequin, and just use simple shapes, right? So for instance, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use like a tapered box. Like this. That maybe widens out a little bit. Has a little bit of a chamfer this way. And then goes down like this, right? So I'm not even using a manipulated cylinder or a sphere, nothing fancy. And then for the pelvis, what I remember from drawing horses, again, just a simple box like this. And again, don't be afraid to draw through your forms. Just find the orientation of your simple shapes first and your big shapes, and then concern yourself with the rest. For the legs, I'm just going to use a cylinder, right? It feels silly to use a box here. So I'm just going to use a cylinder like this. You can leave the knee joint area if you want to. You can use a sphere to represent the knee if you want to as well. Same thing. And then a little bit of a taper for the bottom leg. And then just a very, very simple box for the claws or feet. All right, same thing here. Other side of the leg. Sphere. So your main concern at this point should just be accurate representation of the orientation of your simple shapes. Don't try to be fancy with it in the beginning. Again, what you could do is have like a subtraction. If you want to make things fit together, for instance, you could have a subtraction of the box representation for the feet, right? As if they're wrapping around, if that makes it a little bit easier for you. In the organic form, I'm going to use a little bit of a different representation. And then you could have an addition, right? So you could have the box orientated like this, and then a added box that's a little bit more straight, like this, right? And then the tail, very easy. Again, just tapering cylinders. And the reason we're doing this, guys, is primarily because I want you to get better at problem solving. And this is how you do it, and just filling that visual library. A lot of you think that visual library is the accurate knowledge of everything in detail, which just isn't true, right? It's not about knowing everything, it's just knowing how to simplify everything, which will make your life a lot easier. Right, those arms, same thing. I'm not even going to taper them that much. Just like this. And again, like the appendices or like the extremities of your references, like fingers and claws. And if that's too much right now, don't even draw it in, right? Just leave it. Just because that's detailing. Just concern yourself with orientation at this point. A lot of you will have difficulty enough with understanding where the orientations of the cylinders should be located. And that's completely fine, right? Don't beat yourself over the head with it, but work on it, right? That's all you need to do. Just work on it and keep working on it with these simple mannequins. If you only do this part of the assignment cycle, like part 1, completely fine. You've done most of the work, right? Everything else, part 2, is just getting more knowledgeable, adding more anatomy, adding more organic shapes. Especially part 3 is just designing. So this is where you have like that accumulation of everything you learned. But this is like the bread and butter. This is what you should be learning.